Hey writers, it's Nancy Smay. Welcome to the BS with Writers podcast, formerly Story Strategy from Evident Inc. I'm Nancy, and I just wanted to give a quick little intro here. It is Tuesday, June 4th, as I'm recording this, although I spent the entire day until about half an hour ago believing it was Wednesday. So this is probably going to be a long week, but that's okay. It gives me more time to get things done. And one of the things that we talk about in this episode is how writers, especially indies, are expected to do all the things all the time. So I always have more things to get done. Quick little personal roundup this week, just in case you're curious. I have been hard at work on my cozy mystery. It is due to my editor on the 20th because I'm taking my boys on a big road trip right after that. So I wanted to not be thinking about, I don't know, how to figure out who murdered who and if I put the right clues in the right places. And it's been a challenge, people, because I'm not a plotter, and figuring out not just the nature of the murder, but how it gets discovered without it being obvious is just a lot. And, I kind of embarked on a similar thing when I wrote the Casper Ridge series, because I made it so that there was an overarching mystery. I had this treasure hunt. This old guy left a treasure map to his nephew, and then the nephew and his friends went up and refurbished this resort that got left to him. And over time, they started discovering pieces of this treasure hunt that this crazy old uncle had left. And it was all great in the first book because I could do whatever I wanted. But it didn't occur to me until I sat down to write the second book that I needed to know, what was at the end of the treasure hunt? What was the treasure? I did not know that when I started writing the treasure hunt. I published book 1 without knowing that. I also needed to know, same with this mystery. What are the clues that they're going to find? Where are they going to find them? Who is going to find them? What will the clue mean? Where does it lead them? All of that is not beyond the reach of a pantser, but a challenge, to say the least. So writing cozy has been a shift for me, but it is not undoable. And one of the things that I have been thinking about a lot, especially since my last conversation with Kelly Collins, who recommended a book called Level Up. It is by a man named Dan something. I will find that for you. But it's all about changing your mindset in order to change your life. And while I'm not a woo-woo person, I'm totally practical. If I'm not acting, I don't believe things will happen. And Kelly and I disagree a little bit there because she's much more of a kind of universe believer than I have managed to be. But I like this book because, here, I just found it. It's Rob Dial. Sorry, not Dan. Rob Dial, Level Up. It's all based in science, which makes me happy because, honestly, I would tend to believe lots of fun things. But if I tell my husband about these things, and I talk to him about everything, so I wouldn't be able to help it. He is very scientific and makes me feel not bad, but I don't know. I get excited about embracing certain woo-woo things. I love tarot readings, and I went to see a medium after my parents died just because I wanted some kind of closure. And I don't like to question too much about whether this is a real thing or not. I just like that it, feels good. But he's very different than that. So I guess I have to be somewhere in the middle. And I like that this book is focused on the kind of the science behind brain doings. That's what the scientific people call it, brain doings. That's what they study. I'm sure it's neurology or physiology or all of the above. But one of my very favorite things that this guy quotes in the book is a sociologist, or maybe it was what's the word? Philosopher. really doing well with words today. And what he says is, and this is a little off the topic of positivity, which is where I was headed, but bear with me. He says, I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. And it's all about kind of the masks that we wear, the identity that we put on, and how that keeps us in one place. So if we kind of expand our ability, our willingness to be more than one person, to be a different version of ourselves, then we can bring different kinds of things into our reality. Anyway, so that's from the book Level Up by Rob Dial, which Kelly recommended in our last chat. But today I'm going to be chatting with Marika Ray, who is a good friend. I have co-written with her, and she's just a really smart, hard-working indie author. And we had a great conversation. We covered everything from kind of how we both started in the industry to what she's working on at this point, to a lot about the importance of physical movements and how to maintain wellness as a writer. She also talks about rapid releasing, and we go through some TikTok stuff. She recommends a couple of classes. So stay tuned to hear all of that. And as always, well, I shouldn't say as always, it is a new thing that I will now have all of the resources that we mention in the podcast page on the Evident Inc. website. So at the end of the episode, I'll give you the link for that. You also can just go find it, evidentinc.com. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking and let you enjoy the episode with independent author, USA Today bestseller, Marika Ray. So my favorite part of chatting with other authors and being a part of this author community is getting to kind of delve into their minds and figure out what they're doing that I'm not doing, or what I'm doing that they're not doing. And I always feel like there might be some secret sauce that if I just chat with enough people, I'll get the thing that I really need. So that's the premise behind all these chats that I'm having. And I would love it if you could just sort of introduce yourself and tell us what you write and how long you've been at it and anything else you think we need to know.
Well, I'm Marika Ray. I have been published, I believe, since 2018. So that's math, but I think that's about 6 years now.
I don't know.
And word, not math.
We don't do that.
Yeah. So at last count, I had, I think, 28 books published. So it's a lot. I've been, like you, publishing a ton of books as much as I can. I can get a couple books out. Well, one book every couple of months. So I've been trying to really push hard to get a lot of books out just to kind of
I have noticed that.
Yeah.
Like this year, last year, especially, how many books have you been putting out a year?
Last year was ridiculous, but because I have co-writes in there. So it's kind of like, do I count that? That's like writing half a book. You know what I'm saying? But I think I had 7 or 8 last year. It was ridiculous.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So this year,
I mean, we'll get back into the sort of basics of what you're writing and stuff. But did you see a huge jump in, I don't know, anything as a result of publishing so much?
It's interesting that you say the secret sauce when you were talking about, you want to talk to other authors because we feel their secret sauce. And I feel the exact same way. I love going to conferences for that very reason, to talk to other authors and find out, like, okay, what are you doing and what's working and what am I not doing? And sadly, putting out more books, I don't think is the secret sauce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
There's that whole lot of effort. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it helps, right? Like to have a new release, it bumps up your sales for the month, but I don't think it's the secret sauce to having something take off. I had a book take off 3 years ago now, and it was right when I was moving across the country. I didn't put anything out for like 6 months after that. And the book still took off and did crazy. And it's still one of my bestsellers.
And I have shared the advice about that book, like kind of tongue in cheek since then. When I was at Readers Take Denver, I was like, here's the secrets to success. And I've proven it out now too. Just put grumpy on the beginning of any title.
Put the word grumpy in there. That worked so well for me. Yes. And thankfully it was the first book in a series that I did that. So that really helps the whole rest of the series, but I wouldn't say rapid releasing. I don't know if you would call what I do rapid releasing, but it is fast. And I don't know if that, I mean, I've been able to keep the same amount of sales as I had the year that I had that breakout book, but I haven't gone above that threshold. So,
Yeah. It's
so
always
I
like
feel like I'm working harder to
the
keep the
step.
same amount of income from that one book. So,
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll dig some more into that. I kind of interrupted your
oh,
introduction
yes,
because I
sir.
got so excited.
Oh, I think I
So
rambled.
tell us, what genre are you working in, and what are you working on right now?
I am small town steamy rom com. Um, I know we're supposed to pick a lane, and I have a hard time with that, just like you, which is probably why we get along great. So I'm not just strictly rom com. I'm not just strictly small town. I kind of straddle both of those subgenres of romance. It just is naturally my voice is, and I love small towns. It's what I love to write. So I do both. And I've tried to take the funny out of it, and I can't. Like it's impossible. So I'm like, okay, it's just gonna be small town rom com. Um, but funny enough, when you and I started talking, you said,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm going to be starting something new," and I just started laughing because I was like, I have a book that's almost halfway written, and it's a cozy mystery, and I just find it hilarious that we both did the same thing. We both kind of squirreled off our path.
That's just the nature of our relationship. We're leading parallel lives.
Yes, yes, have been
But
for
you're about to publish something that's a little off your beaten path also? Like, is it women's fiction, or what is Salt
so.
Life?
It is. It is still small town. It is still rom com, but it is set. Oh, that's loud. It was set here in Florida, which is different because none of my other previous settings have been Florida, but that's where I live now. And I thought it'd be hilarious to write a book and paint the world of Florida, which is hilarious in and of itself. So
Yeah.
that's perfect for a book.
Especially to an outsider, right?
Yeah. So it was cathartic for me to write about the craziness that I see here. But anyways, it is a little bit of women's fiction-y. It's more about this woman coming off of a divorce and kind of a second chance at life. And so it does have kind of a women's fiction side to it. So again, it's like picking my lane and staying there is just difficult because like you, I have released a lot of books and I don't ever want to start writing and feel like it's a formula and I'm just plugging in new character names and it's the same story just rehashed. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I would go insane if I had to write the same story over and over again. I'm always looking for a way to make it slightly different, a new trope, a different take on a trope, a new type of character, something. And so I think, I write in series most of the time. And this one that I'm releasing next month, the women's fiction rom com, um, it's a standalone, and so that was kind of fun for me to explore a different setting, a different town that had no connection to anything else I've ever written. So just write whatever I want to write. So that was kind of fun for me.
Do you find it hard not to slip in references to your previous settings, books, people, whatever? Because I'm at the point where I have so many things developed. Like if I need a whiskey brand, I've got the Half Cat. If I need wine, like I pretty much have already built all these worlds that now I'm just like, oh, well,
Yes.
it'll just throw that in, throw that in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is very hard. I think for me, it was easier um, because I took the setting so far away from my current setting. So all my other books take place in California. So for me to have one set in Florida, it is so far away that there would be no crossover. I did that on purpose, honestly,
Yeah.
because yes, these small towns, these characters, the places, they become almost real in your head. So your brain does go towards, oh, this is the perfect, little scene for so and so to come in and say something. Well, they're not part of this world. You can't do that. So yeah, it's hard.
All right. Okay, back to my real questions, which are all over here on my other screen.
Yeah.
So how did you grow up and say, I'm going to be a writer and just start in that career, or what? How did you get to where you are? What'd you do?
Absolutely not. So I always liked to write. Like I'll date myself here, but like we had the floppy disk computer, and when I was a kid, and I'd write stories and I'd save them on my little floppy disk. So I've always liked to write, but no, I'm too practical minded. I was like, well, that's not a career, right? Like no one does that. One or two authors in the whole world make a go at that. That's not what I'm going to do. So no, I got my business degree. I have worked for startups. I had worked in the financial industry. I have owned my own business. I've done all kinds of things. And then when I owned my own business, my daughter actually at the time kind of dared me and was like, I would tell her stories and stuff when she would go to bed, and she'd be like, "Oh, you should write that. You should make that a book." And it was like such a simple comment. She probably doesn't remember that she said it, but it was like a challenge, like the red cloth in front of a bull. I was like, write a book. What? And then of course it got in my head and I was like, I don't know if I can. I don't know how to. And there's a weird thing about me is if I'm like interested in a subject, I will go ridiculously deep into that subject and research it and obsess about it and read about it, listen to podcasts about it, talk to other people about it. Like I don't let it go. And that's what writing was for me. I kind of became obsessed with it and obsessed with the challenge of it. And I love, 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 love learning. So for me, so far, this career has been constant learning, right? There's the art of it, but then there's also the marketing of it. Um, and it evolves and changes over time. So you're constantly having to learn, which I love, and it keeps me engaged. So, but no, to answer your question, no, I honestly did not think writing was ever going to be my thing.
Here we are.
And here we are, right? 30 books later.
No.
Crazy.
Okay. Well, so when you approached that first book, what made you go, okay, it's going to be romance and it's going to be about this guy and this girl and this is going to happen and blah, blah, blah. Like where did that first spark come from?
So I've always been a reader. But it was more like I used to read the British rom-coms with the cutesy covers and stuff. And then I had a friend of mine who introduced me to some indie authors. And that was when I went, what the heck is an indie author? Like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, they publish through Amazon. They don't have publishers. I was like, what? Like, I didn't even know that was a thing. So I started reading a lot of indie authors. She introduced me. I think the first indie author I read was Kristen Ashley. And I read those and I was like, these are so fun. And I just thought, okay, well, maybe I'll model after that. And I've always read, and I can't forget, my mother-in-law always hands me her historical romances. So romance was always like, if I'm going to write, it's going to be a romance.
Okay. And did the idea for the story come from something else that you'd read or people you saw on the street, or how did that spark of the idea come?
The idea was, this is what's so crazy about it, is my daughter, thankfully she just left the house so she can't hear me saying this about her, but when she was little, she was a horrible sleeper, like the worst. I'd have to lay down with her for like half an hour before she'd fall asleep, and then I'd have to like creep out. And so it got to the point where, well, I'm laying there in bed with her trying to get her to go to sleep. So I started telling stories. And then the stories got longer because I was laying there longer with her. And then they'd go from night to night.
Yeah.
And we'd just add on to the story. And she actually named my first two characters that I wrote a book about. She was the one who came up with their names in this storytelling. And she would add little details. I'd add little details. And the story just kept going. And I thought, okay, why don't I take that current story that she and I are just making up at night, and let's see if I can put it into some kind of structure that would actually work for a romance. And I've rewritten that first book probably, I don't know, 3 times now, like fully rewritten. And it's still, I'm not going to go back and mess with it. I'm like, it's done. I'm not rewriting that, but it still doesn't follow, the exact structure of what a romance should be. But it does fine. It still sells. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to leave it at this point. But that's where the first idea came from. And then once I did the one, I was like, I can do this better. Let me try another one. And then I started writing a series. And before you know it, I had 7 books in the series. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty funny. So I already know the answer to this question, but I'll let you explain to others. Would you call yourself a planner, a plotter, or more of a pantser or a discovery writer?
So that's evolved over time. When I first started writing, I was a total pantser, had no idea where I was going, and just started writing. And that's why I had to rewrite it 3 times. So after that, then I was like, huh, why don't I plan ahead? And I read some craft books, like, of course, I won't remember the titles, but I read some craft books all about plotting. And so the next few books I plotted. And so now I've gotten to the point where I do plot, but I'll only plot maybe the first third of the book. I spend way more time doing like I have these long character sheets where it's like 5 pages for one character, just getting to know who they are. I'll plan the meet cute, I'll plan the tropes, maybe the first third of the book, some general ideas of where I'm going. And then I listen to Theodora. What's her last name? She's the one that talks
Taylor.
about Taylor. Yes. And she talks about the butter. What do you call it? Universal Fantasy.
The Universal Fantasy. Hey,
yeah. So anyway, so now I spend way more time planning out some universal fantasies, the characters, all that kind of stuff. And then I start writing, because what was happening is I was plotting the whole freaking book, and I'd get like halfway through and I'd be like, what I plotted doesn't fit the characters any longer. Like, now that I've gotten to know these characters, this doesn't make sense. And I'd have to rewrite the whole plot. So I was like,
I am the same way. And so I was telling someone else, I work with a couple authors that tell me that they write out of order, and they'll write the ending first. And I'm like, but you don't even know the characters yet. Like, how?
That hurts my head. Like, how? I've heard that too. Like, some people will skip ahead whatever scene comes to them that day. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that.
But then how do you know about the funny thing that they said earlier that you have to incorporate into that scene? Like
to me, when they get to that ending and it's like they're pouring their hearts out, you have to include some of the things that happened previously. And if I haven't written the previously, how do they even know what to say? You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yes. My characters have to live their lives just like I have to live mine. Like, I don't know what's going to happen 3 days from now. I can't.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I'm going to remember something about today, and it will be important.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, so what kind of, when you're kind of ideating a new series, like, what kind of research are you doing at this point in your career? More or less than when you started, do you think?
Probably less. I wish, one of the issues I have with releasing so many books recently is that I haven't had the time to do a lot of like craft type things, and to read books, and to kind of work on more the craft side of my writing, which I would like to do in future. So I do need to do more research there. The research, market research.
Yeah.
So I keep buying courses. That's a problem. But I'm focusing a lot on TikTok. I'm trying to. Incidentally, when my Grumpy book 3 years ago took off, I had done some TikToks, not knowing. I always stumble into stuff. It's like I say I do all this research, but really all my successes come from me bumbling around. So I had posted some TikToks for that book, and they went crazy for me. That was crazy. Like, 40,000 views. Like, that was pretty good for a TikTok for me. It's still pretty good for a TikTok for me. And so if I look back at my successes, TikTok was a part of that. So I have a hard time with TikTok because it doesn't come naturally to me. It's hard for me to think of hooks or images. It's just hard. And I end up spending, half an hour to an hour just to make one TikTok that then sits there with 40 views. And it's like, oh, and it kills me. So I know I need to do more research with that. So hence the courses. I've bought 2 different TikTok courses that I'm going through, trying to do better at that. I feel like Facebook ads still work fine for me. They're just really expensive. So, I feel like, and I've done courses for Facebook ads as well, and they do well. But again, it's, it's just a lot of money. And I would prefer if I can get TikTok going for me. That would probably be a better use of my money and my time if I can get on a roll with it. So
is there a TikTok course that you like that you have felt like has been helpful? I've taken a bunch too.
Yeah, so I've done Bobby Kim's course.
Yeah, me too.
His was helpful just for me to understand just different formats of TikToks, and he's good about the sounds. So it was really interesting to learn about
Yeah.
sounds, and he had some great information on what sounds to use. And then I've got Kate Hall's course that I've only gone a couple of classes through. Hers is also good. It's just honestly, I feel like some people are either good at it or they're not. And marketing is not like, I just want to write the book, right? Like, I just want to be creative and work on my craft and write the next book. And marketing does not come naturally for me. So I feel like that's probably the weakest point of my business is the marketing aspect. And I think that's probably why I release so many books is because I'm like, do I want to market the book I just released or do I want to write the next one? And the answer is always I want to write the next one.
Yeah, I get that.
But the correct answer is probably market the one you just did.
No, the correct answer, as far as I can tell, is do all the things all the time, always.
Oh, okay.
That's why this is so interesting, because we know that none of us can do all of the things all of the time. And so it's interesting to hear how people are prioritizing and what's working and what's not. Or, what have we bumbled into lately that might work?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so
I don't know.
let's talk a little bit about actual process, like the tactical hands-on. How are you doing it? What writing software do you use?
So I think same as you, I use Scrivener.
Mhm.
Well, I take that back. For my own books, I write in Scrivener. For the co-authored books that you and I have done or that I do with Sylvie Stewart, we just use Google Docs.
I think it's interesting that you only co-author books with people with the last name Stewart.
I have a method to my madness. Sadly, I don't know any other authors with the last name Stewart, so it's only you two.
Well, once you get into Cozy with me, I'm using Stewart there too. So,
okay. You know what's so funny about that too is like when I listen to audiobooks, the only audiobooks I listen to are romantasy and cozy mystery. Neither genre do I write. So
I know, right? So all the books I read are thrillers. Like
it's weird.
I'm reading the latest Ruth Ware book right now, Catnip. I love those books.
Yeah. So I don't know if I answered your question. I do write in Scrivener. Typically, I use Vellum to format my books. What else do I use? I do Pro Writing Aid.
Software?
Do what software?
Like editing software, like
yeah, I have the Pro Writing Aid and I'll run my thing through that. The only thing that concerns me recently is people were talking about some of these editing softwares like having like AI portions of it. And so now I'm like, should I be running my book through Pro Writing Aid or am I just supplying my entire book to AI doing that? I don't know.
Well, and let's talk about AI for a second. Like which side do you fall on, or are there sides? Are you using any kind of AI?
That's a tough question. That's so controversial too. I am definitely, if I had to choose a side, I would choose the side of no AI. I don't use it for my covers. I don't use it for my books. I have used it for TikToks though, because I talked about how it's, the marketing, the hooks for your TikTok just don't come naturally to me. So I'll put my hook through an AI thing and say, give me 10 different variations of this hook. And sometimes it'll give me a good idea, or I'll splice together a couple ones that they put together. So I have used that for some taglines or some hooks for my marketing. But yeah, it's so sketch because, okay, great. It gave me taglines. It's using my tagline, but what other trademarked or copyrighted information is it using to give me these other taglines? And that's what worries me about all of that.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of what's the word, can of worms. Like I have found it so useful in certain ways and then so worrisome in other ways.
Yeah. I mean, you only have to check out how many, AI voice recorded audiobooks are on the market now. Like there are a ton of AI audiobooks on Amazon right now.
I'm not going to pretend like I haven't produced one. I have a couple
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I look at it like my front of list books that I know I will probably see income if I pay a narrator and like actually go to the effort of producing it, making it really awesome. And as you know, producing an audiobook is, $4,000 to $7,000 depending
So
on
expensive.
what you're doing. So I can't do that for my whole backlist. Like, so I have hit
Mm-hmm.
the yes button on letting Amazon do the AI versions of a few of my audiobooks just to
Yeah.
have them available. And I'm not pretending like these are really high quality, awesome audiobooks, but for those readers or listeners who would prefer to listen to the book and don't care. Like some
Mm-hmm.
audiobook listeners want a certain narrator and they want to hear the acting and they want it to be awesome
Right.
and produced and they want to as artists. And
Yep.
so do I. So for those, this is not a solution. They don't want to
Right.
listen to books, and that's fine. It's just like
Right.
every book I write is not for every one of my readers.
Absolutely.
So I kind of look at it that way, but it is like that does get into the heart of like this cozy mystery thing I'm working on now.
Yeah.
I need a cover and I can't find anything pre-made that I like that will work for the series. I did actually pay a designer and we just didn't communicate and couldn't get what I wanted. And so that didn't work. And I could make exactly what I want on AI, but I'm not going to use an AI book cover because A, I don't want to get flamed. B, I want to pay a cover designer who, so
well, because we're smart enough. We can see the writing on the wall. I mean, give it 6 months and there's going to be full books that are actually readable and okay-ish. That takes our job away. And by using AI covers, we're taking cover designer jobs away. And by using AI art, we're taking, photographers' money away. So I see the writing on the wall. On the other hand, I don't know. It's kind of like the genie's out of the bottle. How do you put the genie back in the bottle? I don't know.
Yeah. I listen to Joanna Penn because she talks me off the ledge. I do think that there are really utilitarian ways to employ AI gracefully in our process without supplanting our income or ability to have value as humans.
Yeah.
So I tend to look at things in a much more glass half full way than I used to.
Yeah.
For everything in life in general. Maybe that's being over 50.
Well, I also think with everything in life, I think we have to be very careful of doing 100% I'm on this side or I'm 100% on this side, because I think that's not how life is. There's nuance in the middle. And I think more of us could agree with each other if we talked about all the stuff in the middle where those two sides can meet. With AI, can we use it responsibly? Can we use it and not replace humans? Can we, as humans, still use the AI and stay in control of the AI? I don't know, but I would like to explore that.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get back to the human writing process. Do you use a story coach or obviously there's an editor at some point along the way? What's your kind of finishing the book process?
So I have never used a story coach. That's one of those things that I was talking about wanting to do in the future as I slow down and give myself enough time in the production schedule to have someone read it and rework the whole thing with me. That's something I would definitely like to do in the future. Currently, yes, I have an editor. So when I finish a book, it takes me about 2 months to write a book. Then I give myself about a week to go back, and I have all these post-it notes. Like I've been going back over a book right now of like, oh, I want to tie that thread up here. And so I go back and do all my edits. Then I go back again through it and do more of like, I forgot a comma or I didn't, more grammar type stuff. And then from there, I send it to my editor. Hopefully she finds loopholes and things that make sense in my head, but I didn't get it down on paper properly. So she catches those. And then from there, I send it to my proofreader. And then from there, I send it to my ARC team. And my ARC team, they know that I love it when they catch errors for me. It's almost for sport for them now to be like, Marika, I caught an error. And I love it. I love that they help me because they help me get out a really clean copy once it goes out to the general population. So, between all of that, I usually keep the errors pretty low. So that's going to continue to be my process.
Yeah. So you know what Kelly Collins told me yesterday? She, when someone finds a typo on her ARC team, she puts their name in a hat. And at the end of the whole process, when the book goes live, she draws a name and gives them a gift card as a thank you for. Isn't that smart?
I freaking love that. You know, I actually love that. I think I might start doing that because I tell them I tell my ARC team all the time how much I love them, how much I appreciate them, but just saying it is very different than actually sending a little gift in the mail would be very cool.
Yeah. I mean, I have their addresses. I always tell myself I'm going to do something and then.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But they are so valuable, honestly.
Yeah. Yes, totally. I agree. And I think, I don't know, half my career, I didn't have the ARC team. I had a couple of like beta readers, I guess. But between getting reviews early and getting all the typos found and just getting questions that, like in the last book, there was I had to produce the ARC really fast. And Dawn, my developmental editor had suggested I move a couple things around. And so I did. And I didn't, you know how you move a big piece and then you have to connect it? I didn't do that. I just moved it.
Just moved it. And everyone's like,
yeah, they were like, is she talking to someone here? Because all of a sudden she's like talking, but I don't know who I was like, oh,
yeah. It happens. Yes, because it's those things you know in your head what's happening in the scene, but it doesn't mean that got down on paper properly. So it's really helpful to have people read through that.
All right. So we talked a little bit about ads and social media. What does a launch look like for you? Do you still put a lot of focus on launching a book or specifically a first in series, but not the rest? Or what's kind of your mentality there?
So because I release so often, I have found that I have really pared down what I do for a release, except for if it's like the standalone that I have coming out next month, or if it's the first in series. So I have like a whole checklist that I go through, but once the ARCs are out, I put it up for pre-order. I typically only do like a month-long pre-order. I'm in KU for most of my stuff. So most KU readers are not going to buy a pre-order. They're going to wait for it to come out and get it through KU. So I don't do a whole lot with my pre-orders. But I do like to have it up just to, have a few and to have the cover. And I like knowing that the day of release, the book's actually going to come out and there won't be any weirdness with Amazon. So I do put it up for pre-order. But then I do a lot of, I go back through my manuscript and I pull out scenes that I want to use for both excerpts, teasers, for TikToks, for any of that, handing out to bloggers. I do still use a PR company that does some things with bloggers, mostly for the reviews, less about the posting on social media, because I feel like that ship has sailed. Like, I don't think bloggers posting on Facebook or Facebook parties really do anything. So I don't waste time on that. I also reach out. One of the big things I do, like this one with my standalone that comes out next month, I reached out, and I hate reaching out because I feel like it's like this imposter syndrome thing of me reaching out to other authors. I'm like, hi, sorry to bother you, but would you put my book in your newsletter? I hate doing it, but I make myself do it for the standalones and for the first in series. So this one coming out next month, I think I had something like 20 something newsletter swaps. So I'm like, okay, that's decent. That's good. And then I do my Facebook ads. I have those ready to go on the day of the release, and then I'll ramp those up. I also try to stockpile a bunch of TikToks, and by a bunch, I mean like 10. And so if I can have one a day during that first one or two a day during release week, I feel like that's good. That's decent. I have a couple accounts. So if I can have one or two per account sending out a TikTok, I know that's nothing compared to some of these. I know some people pay big money to have some big TikTokers send out their stuff, or they have hundreds of people doing TikToks for their release. I'm just not at that point in my career. I don't have the money to pay for that. So I do the best I can with my own TikToks.
Yeah. Do you think that they can tell when an influencer is being paid to review a certain book or something?
I'm hoping that they can, because there's one or two that I always come across in TikTok and I instantly just go right past because I know it's an ad. All their stuff is ads. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if they do, because even the ones that I like to flip right by, because I'm like, I know this is an ad. It has a lot of saves. It has a lot of likes. So I don't know. I don't know. I wish I
Yeah,
knew.
I know. All right. Well, what about like mindset and wellness? Where are you on the mindset spectrum? Are you more woo woo? Do you believe in like all of the abundance thinking? Are you meditating, or more, are you more kind of like, this is my job, I sit down, I get it done?
I would say I lean towards the practical, sit down, this is my job, get it done. But again, I probably fall somewhere in the middle. I think hmm, I don't know if I believe all the manifest it and it'll happen kind of stuff, but
Yeah,
I do think there is something to be said for having a positive mindset. And
for sure.
everybody knows when you're depressed and angry, you get the worst ideas. Like you get tattoos, you get really bad ideas.
Get tattoos.
Tattoos, forever tattoos. So I think there's something to be said for staying in that positive mindset. I mean, nobody's motivated to work when they feel horrible about themselves or their business or whatever. So I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm still very practical. My butt is in the chair Monday through Friday, and I have to write a chapter a day. And I'm still very practical in that way, but I also try and keep a positive mindset, because it can be very hard. This career, you're basically creating something in your head, putting it on paper, and hoping people will like it, and hoping people won't be nasty to you. And usually there's always one that's not very nice and says something horrible in a review, and you've got to just move on from that and not let it affect you with your next work. So um mindset, trying to stay very positive, that's something I try to do. And one of the ways I do that is talking to other authors, kind of like we're doing here, and just realizing I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that's struggling with a certain issue. That usually helps, just to know other people struggle too. Fitness wise,
That was my next question.
okay, so where do I start? Um, Fitness has been hard for me because, along with moving across the country, which is stressful, adjusting my teenager to a new place is stressful. I had, I'm trying to keep this career going. And then I've also hit perimenopause, and all that kind of hit all at the same time. And so I have put on a lot of weight, and this is my primary job. So I sit a lot. Um, but in the last, I would say 6 to 8 months, I've kind of made fitness a priority again for me. So I go to the gym without fail 3 days a week. I'm walking other days.
Right.
And I feel so much better. I think I heard you say on something that it's not even about the vanity anymore. It's just about feeling better. And I
Yes.
can see it, I can see, okay, I've got a little bit of muscle on me again, but I feel it. Like I was having back problems, then my shoulder was hurting, my hip was hurting.
Yeah.
I had all these like aches and pains.
And
And
that
then I
gets into
started
your
back
head
at the,
too.
yes, it does. You're like, oh my God, this is it. My late 40s, like it goes downhill from here. And once I started back at the gym,
Yeah.
all of a sudden I did get a few aches and pains when I started back at the gym, but now that I've been going long enough, I'm
Yeah.
starting to feel really good. I don't have the hip pain anymore. Rarely get the back pain anymore. My wrists, I had carpal tunnel. My wrists are so much better.
Oh, good.
So,
Well, and it should be said, and you don't
yeah.
have to tell more than you'd like to, but I know that for you, fitness is not just like a passing fancy. It's not something you're just diving into for the first time, right? You have a long kind of life history of being in the gym and working hard, right?
Yes. So the business that I owned 8 years ago was a personal training business. And I used to do fitness competitions, and I was extremely fit,
Yeah.
and I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was my passion. So that messes with your head too, right? When you've seen yourself in really, really good shape, and then you're not in good shape anymore, other people might see me and they'll be like, oh, you're fine. But it's like, but the mental image I have is, 12% body fat and lifting weights 6 days a week, blah, blah, blah. So that it's actually been really amazing the last 6 to 8 months that I'm not doing it for vanity. I'm not trying to get back to what I used to be what I used to look like. I'm not doing it for that. I'm literally doing it to feel good and to live a long time. And I can't tell you how much more freeing that is when you work out, because I'm not critiquing myself in the mirror anymore. I'm not worried about somebody looking at me at the gym. I'm just there to be healthy, and it feels so dang good to do it. So I'm going to keep it up. And it makes it easy to keep up because I come away from the gym feeling energized and empowered and like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing for my life. This feels great. So I actually kind of like I'm not as fit as I used to be, but I actually like this season that I'm in with my fitness right now.
I think that's pretty incredible because coming from a background like that, I was a ballet dancer. I grew up in front of a mirror. Um, and I think I am only now, and I'm 51, at a point where I can look in the mirror and see the good things before the things that I would change. And that, I mean, my whole life that hasn't been true. And I look back at pictures and I'm like, what the hell was I worried about? Like, if
Right.
I looked like that now,
Right. I know. Well, and when we're 60, we're going to be looking back right now and being like, oh my God, we looked amazing. What were we worried about? So,
That's what I'm trying to tell myself. Like, wear the shorts because I never wear shorts. I'm like, oh my God, wear the shorts.
the other thing. So I live in Florida now. You have to wear the shorts. It is too hot. So yeah, I go to the gym in shorts. Like, what? Old me would never have done that. So yeah, no, it's very cool to just embrace like I am here. This is what I look like. And so we also have this in common. We have both lost our mothers, and my mom was heavier set. And so I look at myself sometimes now and I'm like, whoa, you've really gotten out of shape. But you know what? I look more like my mom now than I ever have in my whole life. And so part of me, I can't look in the mirror and disparage myself. I look like my mom, and my mom was a wonderful person. So, like, I'm not going to spend any more headspace talking badly about myself or thinking badly about myself. I just want to feel good and I want to live a long time. That's it.
Oh, I so agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so as far as like our community, what are you doing any conferences? How do you keep in touch with other people and feel connected?
So the co-writing. So you and I have co-written books. I'm writing a series with Sylvie Stewart right now. That I love co-writing because we end up collaborating on a lot of things. I love brainstorming with someone else. So that's one way I do it. The other way is I am going to NINC this year, and I went last year. Yeah, I know. I'm like, yes, please come. So last year you didn't go, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't really know anyone. And a couple people reached out to me before last year, and I said, yeah, I'll meet you there. And I kind of latched onto them, and they didn't really know anybody either. And we just kind of gathered friends. And by the end of the group, we now have like a monthly Zoom that we do, the group of us that was at NINC. So meeting in person, I think, is huge. It's huge. So I love going to conferences, and I'm lucky because this one is 30 minutes away from my house. So I love that one.
Yeah. Well, I'm coming, so prepare.
Heck yes. Good. It'll be so much fun.
And am I right that NINC is not specifically like it's not heavy romance like every other conference that we've ever been to? It's everybody. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because you and we actually met for the first time in person at RAM, Romance Author Mastermind, and that was obviously all romance. No, this one is all genres. So I kind of like that because as you and I do, we like to look at other genres that we might be interested in. And I think there seems to be learned from other genres. So I like the opportunity to kind of meet other people that write other things.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to that as I explore outside of romance. I think something about, I mean, I know Readers Take Denver is a loaded topic at this point. I enjoyed myself. I know that there were problems. I did not personally witness them, but I did leave, and with all the drama that came after, with this bad taste in my mouth and kind of just the feeling that I would like to step away a little bit from romance. It's a wonderful community. I've learned so much and gained so much, but it's also so intense all the time.
It is.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
And I think your authenticity is part of what makes you so fun.
Thank you. If I tried to hide it, it would be ugly. I can't be cool even if I tried.
Oh, me neither. That's why we get
Even
along.
the fact that I said the word cool.
I don't think the word cool is cool anymore. I don't know.
No, it's not.
I have no riz.
No whiz. There you go. Yeah, I don't have that at all.
Riz.
I know. I don't know.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you go. I so appreciate you spending some time with me today. This was super fun. You can find story writing tips, tricks, coaching, and courses at our site, www.evidentinc.com. Get live feedback in our writing community at Facebook at facebook.com/evidentinc. And find past episodes of Story Strategy at our YouTube channel. Story powers the world, and we can't wait to help you tell yours.